Over the last few weeks, I've been looking in some detail at the many government schemes that are out there to help overcome the economic damage wreaked on the economy by coronavirus. And in doing that, as have the rest of the team at TechLink, but in doing that, I've discovered a few traps, not really bear traps, but traps that exist within probably the most important of the schemes that I thought would be worth pointing out to you. And they are part of the rules. And by his own admission, the Chancellor has said that these schemes were developed quickly and they are therefore not perfect. To be fair to the government, that's absolutely true. And they have done all they could, I think, over the time to review and react to commentary made and things that have been pointed out as to where the schemes could be improved. But nevertheless, some of those traps, quite important, do exist. So I thought I'd just make you aware of them. First, in relation to the job retention scheme. Remember, you can't claim unless you were employed as at the 19th of March this year. And it's an important thing, and, not or, and the employer submitted a PAYE return, an RTI, a real-time information return, on or before the 19th of March. So that's one thing to bear in mind. Of course, the other trap is that to be furloughed, you cannot carry out any work for the employer. No services can be performed for or on behalf of the employer that generate an economic return, that generate a commercial return. So no work at all for the employer. And of course, we have that other trap for director shareholders who, if they're going to be furloughed, they can only be furloughed in relation to, i.e. the grant can only be claimed in relation to their salary. Many will have either no salary or very small salaries. And of course, also to be furloughed, you must carry out no work for the employer. Now, for a director, they are permitted to carry out the statutory duties, and one of those statutory duties is to promote the success of the company. However, HMRC guidance makes it clear that directors should not carry out any work to generate revenue for the part of the revenue generation process, so that no work that generates revenue for the employer and no services for or on behalf of the employer can be carried out, which leaves directors in a bit of a dilemma who wish to carry on keeping their company going. It's still unclear as to whether they can carry out any of those functions in their capacity as a shareholder. I doubt that will be permitted, but there is a question to the revenue which hasn't yet been answered at the time of recording this. The other thing in practice we've discovered, I think, is that you have around 30 minutes to complete your application when you go on the HMRC portal for furloughing, and then you kind of get kicked out. That was the experience that was being reported to us just a couple of days ago. Right, the self-employment income support scheme. It's the qualifying conditions that represent the biggest traps. The one that's perhaps most known is that to qualify, you need to have profits of less than £50,000, self-employed profits of less than £50,000 in either the 2018-19 tax year. By the way, that's another condition or trap. If you haven't submitted a tax return for the 2018-19 tax year, you can't claim. Now, as well as that, you need to prove that your profits were less than £50,000 in the 2018-19 tax year, or your average profits over 2016-17, 17-18, 18-19 were less than £50,000. And whichever of those years you pick, so you satisfy the condition for, then your self-employed profits need to represent at least 50% of your total income for that year. So that's another trap to bear in mind. And another trap on the self-employment income support scheme. I mean, just going back to that just for a second on that 50,000, it's a really hard cliff edge, because so if you go, great, I can satisfy that because it's £49,999 was my profit on either of those two periods, I'm okay. But then on the other hand, it didn't represent more than 50% of my total income, so I had all this other income. So that's not so good. Or I got £50,001 of profit, so that kicks me out because it's more than 50,000. So they're quite hard, those conditions, and will leave some people feeling unfairly treated, undoubtedly. The other thing with the self-employment income support scheme, and this one has gone, I think, largely unnoticed, is that as well as trading at the point that you claim, and you can't claim till the middle of May, which is another trap, of course. You can't claim until May, you won't get your money till June. And by the way, that hasn't been extended, that period, so far, in the way that the JRS has been extended to June. That hasn't been the case with the SEISS. I think it's under review. So at that point, that other condition, I'll get back to that, is that you need to prove that you have lost profits. So you need to state that you have lost profits due to COVID. How do you do that when you don't know whether you've lost profits or not, if you're measuring your profit by reference to your trading period, which may be as at the end of the calendar year? So we need some further guidance on that, but it could be a trap. Remember, it states quite clearly that to claim, you need to have lost profits due to COVID, even though you can carry on working. That's a nice sort of relaxation that's within the SEISS. You can carry on working. Right, another thing. That's the thing. What was I going to talk about? Grants. That's it. Small business grants. They're, on face of it, look quite simple. They're given by the local authority, and then they claim a refund from HMRC, from the government. To claim, though, of course, you've got a small business, brilliant. Can you claim your £10,000 grant or your £25,000 grant, which is exclusive for retail, hospitality and leisure businesses? Well, of course, you can only claim if you actually pay. I say, of course, this is the rule. You can only claim if you actually pay business rates or you're relieved from paying business rates by virtue of small business rates relief, business rates relief. So if you're a business that actually isn't on the hook for rates or isn't the one that claims small business rates relief, then you can't claim the one-off £10,000 or £25,000 grant. And that's a grant, one-off payment, a payment, not a loan. So if you worked in a shared space where you're not the one directly responsible for the rates, say you worked in a WeWork environment, something like that, you can't claim. So that's another trap where some may go, that's a bit unfair. Well, yeah, it seems it, but that's the rule as it stands. And last, actually not last, second to last, penultimate, the Coronavirus Business Income Interruption Loan Support Scheme, CBILS. Basically, remember that currently the government will guarantee up to 80% of borrowing on those loans, which is brilliant, and they're interest free and there's no personal guarantee for any loans up to 250,000, but it seems the money still isn't getting through enough. There's around 50%, it seems, based on the latest figures, of the applications that are made are being approved. However, remember, you do have to, you don't just go along and ask for this money. You'll have to have your accounts, have a business plan, have a repayment schedule. And remember, the maximum period for loan is 6 years, although that's being contested. Some people are saying it should be a bit longer, but remember, all those things are going to have to be asked. Now, as at the time of recording, there's some pressure apparently being put on to the government, and it's being seriously considered that a 100% guarantee will be given for loans up to £25,000 for so-called micro SMEs. If that comes about, it may mean that the banks are less rigorous in the requirements from the applying business in relation to what they want to see before they'll grant the loan. We'll have to wait and see. At the moment, though, be prepared to make a proper, coherent proposal for a loan if you want to have a chance of getting one. Lastly, on the time to pay arrangement, because VAT and self-assessment you found is brilliant. You just don't pay your tax. It's easy, no traps really, except that you do have to repay. You do have to pay the tax eventually, the VAT or the self-assessment, but in 2021. So in relation to time to pay, it's not just a case of picking up the phone to HMRC and going, don't really want to pay my corporation tax or some other tax that isn't automatically capable of being deferred. They will be asking you, a bit like a bank really, for why, what's your business plan, proving that you can repay and having a reasonable repayment schedule to put to them. So, draws breath, that's the end of my bear trap session. Hopefully you found some of that useful, but as I always say on these recordings, you can get all the information you need from TechLink, and especially good starting place for that is the matrix in the whatever it takes section. So have fun reading all of that, and I hope you found that of some use.